Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our webinar on basically browsing and buying IP online, which is a new-to-the-industry technology. We're going to talk today about an online tool that will allow you to do some significant browsing, analysis of IP, and then actually generate quotes, upload purchase orders, and download the IP all online on our STAR platform. Now, just a little background on what we're up to here. The STAR platform, STAR stands for self-service, transparent, accurate, and real-time. It turns out we couldn't talk about the platform without describing it that way, so we just decided to call it the STAR platform. What's available inside this environment is several tools. You can get real-time quoting on multi-project wafer prototyping. You can get the price for a GDS2 production tape-out, what the NRE will be and what the unit price of the chip will be in the volume you specify and the time frame you specify. You can also track the production of ASICs that eSilicon may be building for you and see where they are in the fab, when they'll be delivered, how many parts you've already had delivered, and so forth. And you can also browse our library of semiconductor IP and do some pretty detailed analysis of what's available in our IP library. We'll be spending some time on that today. This is Mike Gianfagna speaking. I run marketing at eSilicon, and Lisa Minwell has joined us on the call as well. She runs all of marketing for our semiconductor IP products, and she'll be actually taking you through the demo. Now, just a little background on the motivation here. eSilicon is an ASIC provider, so a lot of times we get customers that come to us and ask us to build a chip for them, and it happens more often than not that the chip will be at least 50% of the real estate will be occupied by memory. And a lot of times we get customers that come to us and say, look, I really need help. I can't fit in the package. I can't close timing. I can't meet my power budget. What can you do? And the first thing we do is do a Pareto analysis on the memories, and often we find that while there may be thousands of memory instances, there's typically a few that are causing all the trouble. And we have a strong memory design team. A good part of our semiconductor IP offering is around compilable memories, and you'll hear more about that in a few moments. But what we'll do is go back and say, look, we can custom design a few of these memory instances and get rid of the problem and make it fit in the package or make sure you can hit your power budget. And we win business because we can help folks that way. It brings up the question, though, why do we see that so often? Why are there so many challenges like this? And in point of fact, what we find from a lot of customer discussion is that designing a memory subsystem is an incredibly complex problem. You have technology choices, you have options, you have configurations, dual port, single port, TCAM, register file. There's many different ways to configure a memory subsystem. And to really understand the best possible power, performance, and area match requires a whole lot of work. You have to either get an evaluation copy of the memory compiler so you can try options out yourself, which is quite time-consuming, by the way, and you have to sign legal agreements, or you have to try and find someone who will run the case for you. You have a lot of research to do and a lot of data to compile. And oftentimes, people literally run out of time. They can't really run all the cases that they need. So they may use the same memory subsystem they used last time or tweak it slightly and then move on with the design. And as we all know, EDA tool flows are very good at optimizing logic, but not so good at optimizing memory. So you're kind of stuck with that memory configuration, and you can run into trouble there. There's also challenges in communicating the particular memory subsystem that you want to buy to the procurement folks to make sure that you're actually acquiring what you want. There's ample opportunity in the manual high-touch system used by most companies for errors and for miscommunication. So we looked at all those problems and came up with a unique way to browse, analyze, and buy memory IP online that addresses a lot of those issues and makes it a much more flexible, predictable, and frankly, easier to understand and use environment. And that's what we're going to focus on today, that piece of the STAR platform that allows you to browse the semiconductor IP that we offer. So that's just a little background of what we're up to. I'll be back again at the end of the session after the demo. We will have time for Q&A at that point, so I would ask you to just hold your questions till the end of the demo. And I'll also remind you that there is a chat window as part of the interface as well, so you can ask your question at the end of the demo, or if you think of something during the demo, feel free to just type it in the chat window and send it to the moderator, which is me, and I'll ask the question at the end of the session. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Hello, everyone. This is our STAR platform. This is our login screen. So we're going to begin by logging into the tool. So at this point, there's one user login for the whole platform of online tools. They start with our try and buy IP or Navigator. And as Mike had mentioned, there are other tools within this group that enable you to explore purchasing MPWs, tracking your WIP, etc. We're going to be looking at the Navigator tool, which is going to enable us to navigate all of the IP that eSilicon has created. So this particular site contains memory IP, PHYs, as well as I/O, specialty I/O, general purpose I/O, etc. So when you begin within the Navigator tool, you begin in the browse window, if you will. If you look up at the top, you can see that there's browse, compare, generate, my IP, and my quote. So this particular tool enables you to sort of cover the whole range from the very beginning, where you're exploring a particular new architecture or a new chip. You're looking for the particular technology node that you might want to build this chip on. And let's say you're a marketer, your marketing team at the beginning is really just trying to figure out what the specification would be for your particular product. And it may be dominated by memory, as many chips are today. And so that memory subsystem, understanding exactly what the specifications are of that system, will help that marketer determine really how far they can push the specification for that particular product. So the tool enables you to be able to browse the IP, then to be able to sort of hone in and compare preloaded data that we have for all of our products to be able to really explore what that memory subsystem would look like. Then you're able to generate the entire memory subsystem yourself, and we'll walk through that, as well as download the front-end views and be able to utilize our products within your design, sort of the try before you buy. And then once you've honed in on what the system would look like and the IP that you're interested in purchasing, then you can actually go through and purchase your IP online. And we'll walk through that process this evening or today as well. So this is the browse window. You can see that we have multiple foundries, multiple technology nodes, multiple what we call flavors of technologies. Then you have the IP types, and then underneath each of those types, then we get into more granularity on the specific memory architecture, PHY or I/O architecture. And so by selecting all of this, you can find your IP. You can also find your IP by using the selection on the left column. So you can see that, for instance, right now we have 67 memory products currently loaded, 15 I/O products. Let's say if you had already, determined the technology node that you're looking at, you can also click on that and look at all of the IP available on that particular technology node. So there's multiple ways of looking at this. But let's say that the particular design that you're beginning is one that may be in either 28 nanometer or 16 nanometer, and it's dominated by TCAM. So let's say at the beginning of this project, you're trying to determine which technology node might be the best one for your particular product, and you want to explore that. So I'm going to select TSMC. I'm going to take a look at 28 nanometer, for example. I'm going to pick 28 HBM. And then I'm going to select the TCAM, and I'm going to find that IP. And so at this point, the selection, all of the IP that meets that filtering shows up in the window below. So of course there is a TCAM available. So if I click on that, now I'm able to see at a very high level, this is sort of the features and options available for this particular compiler. And geez, it looks like it's going to match what it is that I'm looking for. But I have some, additional questions that I want to explore. So I can open up the user manual. And so at this point, it's now been downloaded. And I will open it. Actually, I'm going to jump ahead, and I think I've already preloaded that. So here's the user manual. And you can see that at the very beginning, it's very similar to the information that we saw in the window, in the overview. It has the compiler ranges so that when you go to generate different instances, you can take a look at that and understand, what sizes are allowed. It has the block diagram, all of the details about the pinout, the waveforms, etc. All of these things are available. Now let's say that you've looked at that and now you have a question. You can come over and actually visit the online chat and ask your question. You can say, how does, is the priority encoder available for this compiler? And then the person on the other end will be able to respond to your particular question, and you can further explore your questions. And as you're going through this process, you can, as you're generating instances or what have you, this chat window will always be available to you to be able to ask whatever questions you might have. So while we're waiting for that, that'll pop back up. Let's say that now we want to go ahead and explore the TCAM, and we want to take a look at the different technology nodes with this TCAM. We can, there we go, we've got a message. So it says, yes, the priority option is available on this particular CAM. So now I want to go over to compare. Okay, now what you see in this compare window is that you can browse system instances. What we do is, as we release memory compilers into the Navigator tool, we preload data that for power, performance, and area for instances that can be generated across the range of that particular compiler. And so all of that data is now available as system instances. And it's immediately available, so there's no time needed to generate anything to be able to explore really the capabilities of this particular IP on that particular technology. You can also browse instances that you have generated as well, and that's what the other tab is. So for instance, if I wanted to take a look at TSMC 28 nanometer, and I wanted to take a look at first off, this TCAM that we were just looking at, I can browse the system instances, and you can see that you have this selection called All. If I select that, now this is all of the instances, the number of words, the number of bits, all of the column mucks, and then I can pick all of the redundancy options as well, so whether it's on or off. And then down below, you can select which PVTs that you would like to look at for the power or for timing. So in this case, I want to take a look at the worst case PVT for power, and I want to take a look at the worst case PVT for timing. So I'm going to say find these instances. And what you'll notice is that at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this table now beginning to form. And so in this table, you can see the selection that you just made, and it basically in this particular row just shows exactly what you asked to see. So if I select that, okay, now I can plot that. So at this point, I can go ahead and this is taking me over into the plot window, and I can do a plot comparison. You can see the plot below. I can change my axes and the parameters that I'm looking at in each of the axes, and it will automatically update the data below. And you can see that as you move your mouse, it will give you the specific data at each of those points. I can look at leakage power, for example, in the same way. I can take a look at area versus leakage power, and it all just immediately is updating the chart. I can also print that chart as well as export the CSV file. And so when I do that, I can go ahead and open this CSV file in Microsoft Excel, and what you'll see is all of the data is now available to me. And many times we are working from Excel spreadsheets to be able to look at data that we are, building for this memory subsystem in a chip, and that enables us to sort of manipulate, hone in on the right configurations, and be able to, figure out exactly what the spec will be for our subsystem. Now, if I want to go back and compare again, I can go and I can go and compare, let's say, two different architectures, for example. So here, let's go ahead and look at 28, TSMC 28 nanometer. And I'm just going to pick an older technology. I'm going to pick HPM, and I'm going to look at the two-port register file. I'm going to look at all of those instances, okay? And I'm going to pick my PVTs that I want to look at. So I'm just going to quickly sort of hone in on the worst case guys here. So we'll pick that and plot. And then I want to compare this against a, let's say, a 4-port register file. So I'll do the same thing and select those same PVTs and say find instances here as well. And you'll notice that I made a mistake. I didn't go back and select all of the configurations. So when you come down and look at the table and you're looking at what you're comparing, I can compare and see that I picked the same PVTs for these two, but I actually made a mistake and I'm not sweeping all of the instances here. So I can put that in the recycle bin, and I can go back and fix that little problem that I had. So I'm going to go back and select all of the number of words and number of bits and column mux values. And I still have my PVTs selected, and I'll find those instances. And now my table's been updated and everything matches. So I'm going to select both of these rows, and I'm going to say add to compare. And so now I come over into this plot window, and you can see that the TCAM is still showing up there. I'm just going to select the two that I just generated, this 2-port register file and the 4-port. I'm going to plot the comparison. Now my plot is updated, so you can see that the 2-port register file is showing up here in blue, and the 4-port register file is showing up in black. So I can look at the trade-off between these two architectures and that one particular technology. And again, I can do the same thing. I can download a CSV, etc. So that's sort of the comparing and the exploring IP. Now let's say I'm ready to go ahead and generate my subsystem. So when I'm over here, I can generate an instance by instance basis. So let's say that I have decided I'm going to use 28 nanometer as my platform. I've made that decision. And let's say that I'm going to use 28 HPC, or let's do 28 HPM again. And I want to go ahead and now start to generate instances on this particular technology node. So I'm going to generate some TCAM instances, and let's say, I want to generate something like, an 88 by 32, for example. And now I can, let's say I may have generated this instance in the past and I want to overwrite the existing instance. Just in case maybe the compiler may have been updated since I last worked on this, I can go ahead and do that. And I'm going to select this with redundancy. These are the various different options available for the compiler. So you can see that there's also a priority encoder option, and there are these various different stress modes that enable you to trade off margin within your design and speed. So if you wanted to run at a faster speed with less margin, you can select the fast stress mode, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and generate this front end. And so it's going ahead, it's queuing that up. And now what will happen is where you see the instances that you've been working on is in this My IP tab. So when you walk over here, you can see that that particular instance is now in progress. And you can see that there are other items that are on this page that I have generated. So the system will, for 60 days, store your data. So if you're working on various, on a subsystem and you're kind of going back and forth and trying to optimize it, all of that data will stay here for you, and you can manage it. Now, let's say that you have hundreds of instances that you want to go ahead and generate. Doing it one by one is very tedious. And if you look down here at the very bottom of the page, you can see that there's a tab for generating multiple instances. So when I go here, now at this point, I have the ability to generate multiple instances. I have a table available to me to be able to do that. And I also can take a look at lists of instances that I have already created. So a first-time user, for example, you can go in and select your technology, your foundry, that same TCAM. And let's say you wanted to go ahead and generate, that same TCAM that we did previously. You have the ability to do it in this manner. I think we had selected redundancy, yes. I think we had a priority encoder, yes. So this is how you would do it using this particular table. Now, let's say that you want to use this and then begin to create a template for yourself. You can go ahead and save this instance list. So let's save this as Lisa 2, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And once I've done that, I can actually download this list, and it begins a template for me to add additional instances using Microsoft Excel. So we'll open that in Microsoft Excel. And this is what that template looks like. So when it finishes what it was doing, your first row of this would show that TCAM and all of the words, the bit, all of the configuration that you had selected. It would have put that in the first line of this particular spreadsheet. And then you would see exactly how to fill it out. We also provide guidance up here explaining exactly what the fields are within this sheet. And then you can name modules for each of these memories so that you can track them by module name as well. So it's very helpful and very useful, and it's the way that many people typically manage their memory subsystems. So we tried to mimic as best as we could the way that people typically are, building up their systems. So let's go over to the My IP page. And here, let's go ahead and take a look at downloading this instance. So this is the instance that we previously generated, this TCAM. And now I want to go ahead. It says it's ready for front-end download. So I want to do that. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to download the front end. And it asks me, am I sure? Yes. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now you'll see that I have a tar file. And so I can open that with WinZip on my laptop here. And so let's take a look at what's in that package. So you could select as many instances as you had generated. There's a mechanism to select all of the instances, for example. So you just, with one click, could create this particular tar file. Here is that file, that folder. And so we're going to go down into the directory structure. And so you can see all of the views that are available in the front end package for this particular instance. You can see that you have your left and your Liberty files. So all of those are available for you to begin loading into your design and begin doing synthesis and some early place and route. So you have everything available to you to be able to begin your design. And that's really, how to download front ends and be able to incorporate them. Now, let's say that at this point I decided that I wanted to purchase this particular memory instance, for example, and let's say there were a few others that I wanted to purchase. So let's pick a couple of things here on that same technology node. So I'm going to pick these 3 instances, and I'm going to say that I want to add these to my cart. So once I do that, these modules have been added to my shopping cart. And if I look up here in my cart, sure enough, there are 3 items. So I can click on that. And yes, those are the items that I had selected. And so at this point, I can see that there's pricing associated with it. And you can also see that since I chose 3 instances, it also points out what it would be if I were to purchase this particular compiler. So I have a few options of the way that I want to proceed. And I can also go back and add more to the cart or remove if I so choose. So now I'm going to go ahead and check out. And so at this point, I have the ability to proceed with the compiler purchase instead of the instances because it's cheaper. So I can go ahead and delete these out of here and select the compiler. And then I have the option to choose a maintenance option. And if I select on this little question mark, I can see at a very high level what's involved in basic versus standard maintenance. And really the difference between these are whether or not a characterization for a PDK update would be included. So this is a rather stable node. I'm just going to select basic maintenance. I don't think that there are really going to be any PDK changes. And I'm going to add that because I want support for questions that I may have, critical or bug fixes and what have you. And I'm going to call this quote George, okay? So I've named it, this is my quote, and it says, by submitting this quote, I am acknowledging that I agree to the Navigator terms of use. Now these were the terms that you had to agree to when you originally requested an account in Navigator. But if you needed to remind yourself of them, it would go ahead and you can click on that and it'll bring up the terms of use. And then you can go ahead and explore and refresh your memory on the confidentiality. You know, clearly whatever it is that you're downloading and viewing in Navigator is eSilicon. And it just goes through, who has what rights, et cetera. So let's go ahead and run a quote. So this is going ahead, generating that quote. The quote name is George, and it's now for a compiler because we had enough instances where it made more sense for us to purchase a compiler than to purchase instances by themselves. And so it's going off and working on that right now. Okay, so at this point, if I go over and I take a look at my quotes, this will show me all the quotes that I have generated. And so I had a webinar this morning, and I've been playing around today, so I think we'll see quite a few quotes in here. In fact, to the left, it tells me, do I want to see all, which are 3 quotes, or I can actually look at quotes that were generated in the year, the month, or older. And the thing is with this is that it's only going to show quotes that are still valid. So when we generate a quote, there's a period of time with which that quote is valid. So you can see here, George, I can go through the purchase flow. I can view this quote. So let's go ahead and view the quote. And it's going through that download process. So let's take a look at that. So this is an official quote. You can see that I am associated with eSilicon headquarters. This would actually show your company name. And it has an official quote number. It has a revision as well as a period of time with which it is valid. And then inside the quote, you can see that you have a particular salesperson and a contact. So you're able to contact them with any questions that you may have. And then the actual terms and conditions that you would typically see in a license agreement, we have attached as Appendix C. So this quote basically serves as your terms and conditions, your quote, and since these items are off the shelf, there's no real statement of work involved in this. So you can see the item that you're purchasing, the price of that item, and then, of course, the payment terms that are associated with it. Your maintenance and support, since you had selected, since I selected basic maintenance, those terms are in here. And then you can see the actual specifications for what it is that you've purchased. So it's very clear what it is that you're agreeing to purchase and the details of that. So that's what's located in the particular quote. So let's say I want to walk through the purchase flow. I would begin by coming in and in the getting started, basically, it's telling me that these are the items that are associated with this quote, George. Then I can go through and go to the next step. And in each of these steps, now this payment option is completed, and I'll explain this a little bit to you. When you're a first-time user or a new purchaser of our IP, there's a particular credit form that needs to be submitted. That's what is associated with this option 2. I have gone through this process earlier today, and so my credit form was already filled out. But in this particular section, you can download this credit application, and I created a dummy one for Sandy Beach Corporation that is on Beach Drive in sunny California. And so I've uploaded this, and the system has already gone through, run the credit check, and approved me for a credit line to go ahead and purchase with a purchase order option. So that's why, that's what would happen in this particular option. And so as you walk through these different phases, you can see that items that you have passed, where you have completed that particular task, turn green. And the one that you're on, or if you have not finished going through that whole process on that particular item, then it remains orange. So now I can go ahead and upload a signed quote. I can go through my system and select that file, upload it, and then move through each of these phases of this particular process. So once I upload my signed quote, I would come into the purchase order. I would upload my PO, I'd put in my PO number, and then I would go ahead and confirm that these indeed are the items associated with my PO. I would select the address, because sometimes, there are multiple addresses associated with larger companies, so that is available. And then your license server information so that the correct license file can be generated for your particular company. And so you'd go through this phase, and you would move on to the next phase, which is delivery. So let's go back into the My IP. Once you go through this phase, what you'll notice when you're in your My IP window is that items that have already been purchased will show up here with this little download button, and it says ready for back-end download. So this is these two these two CAM instances, I have gone through that entire process, and now I'm able to go ahead and download the full views available for them. So other things are at different stages. Some things I am only able to look at front ends because I haven't gone through that full purchasing flow. The other thing that you'll notice in this window is instances that I've manually generated where I've hand typed them in the generate page show up as manual, and others, if there was a particular batch file, that Excel spreadsheet that I had shown earlier, you know, then it shows up as they're associated with that particular list. So you have a way of actually managing what it is that you are have available to you. And like I say, these are available for 60 days. Anything that you have generated will stay in this particular window. So that's an overview of the system, how you would use the system, and really take it from the very beginning of your project where you're exploring options, comparing different architectures or what have you, generating instances, and then going through the download process as well. So I can take questions if you have questions at this time.
Thank you, Lisa. So if anyone has a question, now would be a good time. Double check that you're unmuted. And remember, you can also use the chat window to send questions that way as well.
I have a question. In order for us to fill up all the options, is there an instruction like the priority encoder means the PE stands for what for each field? Where can our customer or us refer that?
Oh yes, absolutely. That is in the user manual. So remember, we looked at the user manual early in this process. So when you are in here, it'll go through all of the options within the compiler and actually explains how the compiler works, etc. So they're all shown in the user manual.
Okay, so this is open to our customer or just internal?
It is open. It's open to users of Navigator. So once you have an account in Navigator and privileges within Navigator, then you're able to view the user manual.
Okay, thank you.
Did get one on the chat window. What if I can't find a specific configuration of IP I need on Navigator? What do I do then?
Okay, so well, there's a couple of ways to interpret that question. One is that when you look at the compare window, for example, here we had two different classes of instances. One were system instances that are preloaded, and then the other is to be able to generate instances of your own. So if there isn't a system instance in the system readily available, you can go and generate that particular instance in the generate window. If for some reason that instance size maybe that you want to generate for that compiler is not able to generate because it may be out of the compiler range, then you can ask a question on the chat window and start a chat session, and we will work with you to assist you. So there may be some custom instance that you might require or some assistance that's outside the ability of the existing compiler, or you may need a new memory architecture that we don't currently have loaded in Navigator. And that's where you would use the chat window to make those requests, and we would be working with you to accommodate you.
Okay. I did get one more question here, which I think is a good one to pose. How much does it cost to use Navigator?
Oh, Navigator is free of charge. So we make this tool available for our customers and future customers free of charge. And so you're able to explore IP, try IP, and pay when you've made your decisions and you're ready to go forward and use that IP in your particular design.
And I will thank you all for joining, and we'll stop here. Have a great day. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye-bye.